It's Jan Carruthers, and I'm delighted to welcome you all. And I know many people are going to be joining us as we come along here. I want to acknowledge you for your interest in the parks and the recreation in our community. And tonight, I'm introducing an active citizen group who is initiating the process to forward a new opportunity that's coming from the new bylaws of the NCPRD and the opportunity to create more proportional representation for the unincorporated members of the district, the NCPRD, our park. The way the evening is going to go this evening is I'm going to introduce Commissioner Paul Savas, who is going to give us a sense of where we are, where we've come from, and then a group of the people who have been formed kind of a core team to initiate this process and begin and invite you to participate as well. So this is the first community meeting to let everybody know what's happening and what's possible. So with that, again, I truly welcome you and thank you for your interest. And I want to introduce you to somebody who's well known to us, and we appreciate your supportive involvement, Commissioner Paul Savas.
Thank you, Jan. My name is Paul Savas. I'm a Clackamas County Commissioner. I'm a lifelong resident of NCPRD, which is the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. Jan, thank you. Jan has helped me in previous town halls I've done, and she's a great facilitator. So thank you again for volunteering for this. Yeah, we've been on a long journey with NCPRD. For those of you who may not be aware, NCPRD was formed in 1990. I won't go into great detail. We have a slide that covers that, but basically the city of Milwaukee and the remainder of the unincorporated area within the boundaries formed that district in 1990. Happy Valley joined afterwards, and the difficulty arose when Happy Valley chose to withdraw. So we've been a little bit in hiatus at points as far as the district advisory board. We've had some bumps along the way. So we've really had some inconsistent times as a result of the legal battles between the city of Happy Valley. I'm happy to say that the relationship with Happy Valley is good. They have separated from the district. That was a bill that was signed by the governor. We're in good standing. So what remains today really is the original, basically the original boundaries of the district as they were in 1990. So with that, we have been charged with rewriting the bylaws, which pulls out the Happy Valley language and gives us a new start. And we are trying to reinvigorate what was originally conceived as the sub areas. And Milwaukee has done a magnificent job on their share, because Milwaukee in and of itself is a sub area of the 5 that were originally conceived. They have their own Parks Advisory Board. They're appointed by the Milwaukee City Council. And they also have, we're within the boundaries is also the Milwaukee Center. With that, as we form these new sub areas and the bylaws were approved, we worked in the bylaws. We had with COVID, we've had some interruptions. We've had about everything that can go wrong in 2020, you can imagine. But we thought we'd done it early 2020, but we hit a bump with COVID. And so the bylaws have finally been approved by the city of Milwaukee, the Board of County Commissioners. Obviously, the work was done by the District Advisory Board. That has now been changed to the District Advisory Committee. So you'll hear us say DAC from here on forward. So in there, we have, again, structured in the language, the creation of the sub areas for the remainder of the unincorporated part of the district, which makes up about 83,000 people. Milwaukee, to their credit, I believe, really wanted to see us have geographic representation in a balanced way. When I say balanced, I mean geographically balanced, population balance, and so forth. So we strived as best we could to keep the existing boundaries divided up in a way using census tract numbering to get about a 20,000 average population for each of the sub areas. And the membership is such that each of the sub areas of 20,000 will have 2 representatives. Milwaukee has in the bylaws the choice and to choose the folks that they want to choose. And essentially, the sub areas, when created, will also have that same opportunity. So we're trying to kick that process off right now tonight, actually. And so I would, there will be opportunity at the end for some Q&A. We will talk about this a little bit. I've asked a couple people who are interested. Now, Grover Bornefeld was one of the members. He's with us today. He's one of the panelists. He was on the District Advisory Board, and he took the initiative to get some folks together and see if they were interested in forming the sub area committee structure. And so that's what we're embarking on tonight. We've got some interested citizens who are joining us tonight, and Jan will introduce them. I want to thank them for their efforts to try to pull this together. And you too, if you're interested, will have an opportunity to be involved in crafting the language and the structure for the sub areas. And in short order, hopefully early next year, we'll be selecting membership to sit on and represent those particular geographic sub areas. So again, thank you, and thank you all for joining me tonight, and joining us. And I want to again thank the citizens, and we will take Q&A afterwards. And with that, Jen, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks. Actually, I'm going to invite the participants to introduce themselves when they do their parts of the presentation. And I also wanted to thank Christina Terwilliger and Emily from the county, who are helpful, really supportive folks. So if you would open the presentation, Christina, and take it away, you guys.
Okay, can you go to the next slide, please? Right, thank you. My name's Molly Little, and thank you, Commissioner Savas, for opening us up today and setting the stage for this work that we're embarking on as citizens and neighbors. It's pretty exciting work. A few of us got roped into this just because we're interested in parks, and somebody knew somebody. And so we got together and said, how can we make this work? I live in Oak Grove and I work in Milwaukee. I've worked in Milwaukee for 15 years and still do. So I have an invested interest in making sure, just like you all that are here attending, that we have a voice in how in all of our parks and facilities and programs and acquisitions or sales or no sales, but we really need to have a voice as part of this district advisory committee to make recommendations to the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation Governing Board. So that's what this role is going to be. This group that we are embarking on identifying is going to be advising the North Clackamas Parks and Rec Governing Board. And so there's lots of things that we'll get to have a voice in that we currently do not have a voice, because we live, at least I do, and a lot of us live in these unincorporated areas that have not had a voice for a number of years. What I think the next slide is, I think Grover's going to talk about a little bit about the history, and then we're going to let you know a little bit more about the process, the next steps. And we're excited that you're all here. There's 44 participants right now, and that's really exciting to see that you're all interested. So thank you for coming. Next slide, please.
Grover, you need to unmute yourself.
Can you back up one slide? Great. So what I actually, first of all, I'm Grover Bornefeld, and I live in Jennings Lodge, and we've been in the district for its entire existence. And what I notice is I've become quite involved in my community. I care about my community, and I notice that I hear a lot of people talk about how they don't know a lot about what's going on in parks, and or they're not happy with certain things that are happening or not happening. And so that got me to look into it, and I found my way, as Commissioner Sav said, I found my way to apply to and be on the District Advisory Board, and I got to participate with a bunch of great people when we looked at how it is, what we think's missing, and how we can go forward. And so I really want to acknowledge that those concerns were expressed, and the Board of County Commissioners heard it, and they actually did direct the actually brought out of hiatus the District Advisory Board to begin the process of expanding community input into including the unincorporated area. And most people don't necessarily know that the unincorporated area represents 80% of the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. And so to be able to finally find a way that works for everyone, to have a proportional representation, it's been great, and we're looking forward to moving on with that. What I have known is that a lot of people feel that it has led to uneven district-wide resource and distribution. So that's what we're going to be looking at. And what I've learned long ago is that you can't fix the past, but you can look at what you see in the past and figure out where you want to go from there. So I know in my area, many people were just heartbroken when we lost the Jennings Lodge campgrounds as not becoming a park. So that's one of those things that got lots of people engaged. We had huge meetings, etc. And you got to meet a lot of neighbors. So the thing that works is find out what people care about and then address it. And I think we have a great opportunity moving forward with that. So the other thing is things like open space and other opportunities. It has not been, if you read the comprehensive plan, which we are an unincorporated, and that guides us, it has been saying since the 70s that we need to get ahead of the expansion or we'll miss out on open space. So we need to keep focusing on that. And possibly in the future, when we get more people engaged in and feeling that it's making a difference, we will be able to revisit the district expansion opportunities to consider realigning the governance, et cetera. But what we do have right now is a great opportunity. And I'm looking forward to that 4 years without a district advisory board or now district advisory committee being able to function. We will be able to start addressing all the piled up stuff that needs to be focused on. So next slide, please. Thank you. So just a bit of history. One of the things that we learned in doing the looking back, Commissioner Savas talked about the 1990. I really want to use the same focus he did, but the issue that there were originally 5 neighborhood park sub areas with advisory committees, and they were the opportunity to connect with their local citizenry. And then from that, they would send a representative from that group onto the district advisory board at that time and now committee. The only, and as Commissioner Savas said, the only one that successfully accomplished that and carried it forward is the city of Milwaukee. So this is an opportunity, and that is why we got started on this, but we're not it. We just got started, and we're looking forward to many, many, many people joining us. We're really working hard on outreach so that people can get involved and we can actually return to having that kind of sub area focus that then leads into being able to affect the people on the advisory board and having a two-way communication so you get to hear from the various folks. The one thing that I am looking forward to finally resolving is the issue around, we were one district. We were one district specifically focused for supporting unincorporated, and the city of Milwaukee was included. Now we need to look at how we can undo being 3 separate zones with funding restrictions. because that is not one district. So that's been on the agenda for 4 years. So that's one of the first things that we need to focus on when we get back going. And I have to say that it is that many people feel there's been a lack of even distribution. Whether it can be shown in a particular way, that's how they feel. And I know for here, there are no parks near us that we can walk to, can go play in. Trolley trail, we're happy to have that, but that's not a park you go have a picnic in. Lastly, I want to speak to the last point there, that it is in fact the Board of County Commissioners who did direct it so that we can have these new bylaws. And what we're hoping to do is have people become familiar with what the new opportunities are and keep looking forward with our proportional representation to have the next 30 years be the best and keep building on what's there already. That's it for me. Next slide. And Anita.
Hi, I'm Anita Blackmar. I lived in Oak Grove for 15 years, and I'm happy to be meeting tonight with fellow residents of our Parks District. And if you look at the map, the sub areas are created for DAC representation, and the system uses a population-based model like the House of Representatives or the Oregon State House. The city of Milwaukee and each sub area, as you've already heard, have around 20,000 residents each and get 2 representatives each. Our district community center, the Milwaukee Center, gets 1 representative as well. The goal of the new sub area system is increased communication between the citizens from every corner of the district and NCPRD. I love what our parks and recreation programs bring to our community, and now we're starting a new chapter of district residents shaping our parks and programs. If you look at the map, starting in the north, the green area is the city of Milwaukee, which extends to the north edge of the county. And to the east of that, in the yellow area, it is a sub area that includes land on both sides of 205 and extends to the north county line. The blue sub area extends from the river, Willamette River, and goes across 224 and stops at 205. And below that, the orange sub area extends from the Willamette River past 205 and includes part of 212. And then the pink area picks up there and continues east with more of 212 and also the Mount Talbert area. As far as the boundaries go, the DAC bylaws state that the sub-area boundaries will be revisited every 4 years at a minimum, but they also state that they can be reconsidered at any time to keep up with changes in population, changes in incorporation or annexation, or district boundary changes of other kinds. They're not baked in. This is our district and our map and our representation system. It's an ongoing project, not a finalized product. And it's up to all of us in the district going forward to make it what we want it to be. Next, you can participate in an online poll that will identify how many attendees we have tonight from each sub-area. So if someone will bring up the poll.
Go, Christina.
Christina's working on it. There you go.
Oh, there it is.
So Christina, are people responding?
Yes, sorry. They are responding. I wasn't sure if you guys could see it or not.
We can't see it.
Yes, we have about 67% responded yet. So we keep going up.
Why don't we give it to another minute?
And I'll let you know if all 100% have cast their vote.
I'm just looking at the Q&A here, and Mike is saying that he needs to see the map larger. I don't think that we have that capability at this moment, Mike, but noted that a map to scale would help people. And I see that Ben has mentioned that Milwaukee isn't listed on the poll. I actually don't have the poll in front of me, but I'm just looking at the Q&A here and wanting to make sure that people who are asking questions or comments are noted as part
Would you
of what's
consider
happening.
Milwaukee Zone 5 for
Correct.
the
Yeah,
purpose of the
yes.
poll?
Yeah, Milwaukee, we consider zone 5.
There you go.
Sorry, we didn't do that.
Right.
We're in new territory.
It looks like we have kind of stalled off on the polling. There is nobody.
Okey-doke.
Go ahead and end that. And so I don't know if you guys can see the poll results. I am sharing them.
Do you want to read them or shall I?
Oh, I can read them. It looks like 31% or 9 people believe they're in zone 1. 24% or 7 people believe they're in zone 2. 17% or 5 people are in zone 3. 1 person is at 3% in zone 4. And then 24% and 7 people are in other or unknown.
Thank you.
So next slide then.
Good evening. My name is Lindsay Friedman, and I am in sub area 3 by Mount Talbert, and I've lived here for the past 7 years. I love living here. We've really greatly enjoyed exploring the beautiful land and the parks, and this land that was originally inhabited by the Clackamas Band of the Chinook Indigenous people. We just feel really thankful to be here. I'm going to talk about the legal mechanism allowing for our direct representation, as well as a few details that the bylaws require as part of the nominating committee process. So the legal mechanism that allows the sub areas to have this direct representation opportunity is located within the newly adopted DAC bylaws, subsection 4E to be precise. And these bylaws state that the applicants will be recruited and nominated by each sub area's nominating committee. And the nominating committee should be made up of residents living within each particular sub area. So myself in area 3, I can participate with other sub area 3 residents to take part in the process of nominating the 2 representatives for the sub area DAC. Each sub area is allowed 2 representatives on the DAC. So far, I'm gonna talk about 3 groups. So I'm gonna go slow. So far, we have the DAC, the advisory group. We have the nominating committee referenced in the bylaws. So overseeing this process will be a task force. And the task force is a short-term citizen involvement group that will be made up of interested volunteers from the 4 sub areas of unincorporated North Clackamas. And the goal of this task force is to structure the process for selecting DAC sub area representatives. That is the goal. So, and of course, the NCPRD Board of Directors will finalize this process by appointing the final DAC representatives. So we've talked about 3 groups this evening in my slide: the DAC, the advisory committee, who we all want to get appointed so that we can see our park dreams come to fruition as quickly as possible. And we have the nominating committee, which is given authority through the bylaws and made up of sub-area residents. And then we have the task force, also made up of sub-area residents who will structure the process for selecting the DAC applicants. So the goal now is to get volunteers on the task force who will detail that process. If you are interested in this parkerific opportunity, please come in be a part of it, you can contact Katie Wilson. You will need to contact her by January 4th, 2021. That's really soon, but in the interest of getting the DAC appointed and moving forward with the incredible visionary projects that everybody in the sub areas in Milwaukee want to move forward with, let's get this going. So you will see Katie's email on the next slide as well. If you don't have a moment to jot it down, go grab a pen. And thank you very much. It was a pleasure being a part of this, and I look forward to continuing to be a part of this process.
That's great.
Next slide.
So next steps, this is where we are. This is that town meeting to absolutely hear from you, learn more about your interests, concerns. The task force is, as Lindsay just mentioned, we'll meet to complete the selection structure. It's a process, it's an organization that has an endpoint. Its intention is to support the subgroup communities in order to be able to move forward and fulfill this opportunity. All 4 sub areas will update an overview and a sub area group discussions, those things that are, many of us say, well, oh great, how do we do this? This is how we get started to do this, is that there's a participation opportunity. Task force volunteers, again, connect with Katie Wilson at the county. She's terrific. She's part of the community involvement oversight group, and we love her. So she's a great support. So this is an invitation. Please write down her email if you're thinking about participating, or if you have questions that you want to speak directly, you can contact any one of the people that have been speaking. And I also want to acknowledge Marilyn Gottschalk, who was also part of this group, who had great insights and just didn't want to be part of the presentation part because these folks were doing it. So at this point, I'd like to open the town hall aspects. We have a Q&A section, and a lot of people have participated already. Christina is going to keep an eye on the Q&A and see what we're who have already asked questions. At this point,
Jan, can I just add a couple things for clarification? I was listening intently, and I always try to listen and make sure that that any, as best I can do, any anticipated questions we can answer on up front. So thank you all for doing a great job. Everything you said, I think, is pretty well what we're trying to do. As it was mentioned, this task force is a temporary group that will help create a structure. That structure, once completed, will be reviewed by our legal staff to make sure it complies. So we have a structure, and they'll be creating the structure of a coalition of the sub areas. So it'll be one real group committee made up of the 4. And that will be essentially the nominating committee and also the park advisory committees for these sub areas. And they will have their representatives. They'll select, who will sit on the district advisory committee, and there'll be 2 from each sub area. So I did want to let everyone be assured that, number one, it will be a structure that will meet and be a permanent advisory board for the county or for the district. It will be approved by the district board of directors, which is the Board of County Commissioners. And so that's what we're planning to do. And I will just stop there, conclude there, and we'll take the questions. Thank you.
thanks. Christina?
Yes, so I was going to mention we can take actual voice questions as well, not just through the Q&A. So if you want to just hit the raise hand feature on the Zoom bar, and we can start with that. Looks like
You have 2 questions already there.
we do. So let me go ahead and read those out. Rick Cook asked, oh, nope, it went away. I believe that Emily is answering them also as we were speaking. I was trying to just handle with the attendees that raised their hand, which I just saw one go up, but it went back down. Oh, there we go. Al Scott. So I went ahead and brought you over. Al, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay, thank you. Are there any specific qualifications this committee that you're looking for? And I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So this committee here will come up with guidelines for all the 4 subcommittees that will all be working together. Is that the main frame there? Or I'm not clarified there yet, Paul, on exactly what you're looking for in the task force.
Sure. Yeah. The task of the task force is to help create a structure that will be the future coalition, and whatever they choose to call themselves, which will be, again, serve as both a Parks Advisory Committee for the sub areas only to direct their representatives, and also be the nominating committee for the sub areas. So this task force is short term. If it's one of those things, if you understand structure and detail, it's probably your cup of tea. If it's not your cup of tea, it may not be the best opportunity. If you want to be part of the future sub area and be part of that, by all means, there will be an opportunity for that shortly after this structure is approved. But we can't appoint anyone from the sub areas until we have an approved structure.
Okay, thank you.
So we do have a couple questions, so I will read those now. Jane Morrison, would NCPRD be interested in participating in a virtual volunteer fair in partnership with the other local community organizations to recruit members of the DAC, etc.?
Well, I think I'm probably the only one here who is can speak for the NCPRD. I appreciate our volunteers. The DAB that we had is no longer formed, so I remain as the NCPRD liaison. So in that capacity, I will answer the question. So yeah, we have had an application process in the past under the prior structure. We made sure that all those applicants were notified for this meeting, so they can be involved as they choose. And there will be opportunities for in the near future, once the structure is approved, to do a recruitment process. So whether that is a fair or that's a notification, when you ask if NCPRD is open to that, I guess that would really be the board of directors. I don't see why not. We'll just take all these ideas and compile them and come up with a good process.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. And it looks like we have a hand up. Jay, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Jay Panagas. I live on 64th and King Road, and I've been here since 2003. I do some volunteer work for the city of Milwaukee and for the city of Portland. I'm a bicycle activist in that I volunteer for quite a few bicycle activities. And I have a strong interest in parks. And so my question is, I'm a little vague as to the application process and the interviewing process. I understand the task force, but is it like an interview process, like you would be interviewing for a job position, or is it a little bit different than that?
Thank you for the question, Jay, and
Yep.
Thank you for participating. You're in an area where we would like as much involvement as we can in your sub area. So thank you for being involved, and thank you for the question. The interview process is like any advisory process. It's, we've done those in the past. It won't be the board of directors, I don't think, that'll be doing the interviewing. But typically people submit an application with typical questions on there. We're usually not looking for any special expertise. You know, I think passion and interest is a key motivator. The sub area committees that will make up this interview panel will actually create that that system, whether it's a 15-minute interview or a 30-minute interview. We don't know exactly, but it will be quite similar to any advisory committee, I'm sure, that we have in the county. And we have about 70 some odd advisory boards and commissions in Clackamas County. So if you live in the district or live in that area, you're obviously going to be interviewed. If you accidentally applied and you don't live in the district, you may receive a letter from us saying that you don't live in the district or something like that. But if that helps, Jay, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much for the clarity.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Jay, I'd like to appreciate if you could reach out to other people in your area as well, because as Commissioner Savas mentioned, we have limited reach in your area. So if you know other people who are avid recreation people, have them be on the lookout for opportunities to get involved, but also future meetings when they are scheduled.
I will do that.
Thank you.
Christine, I have a question. Can you put in the chat so that people can see it, Katie's contact information?
Yeah, I can definitely do that.
So I know you have that. Richard Nippon has that request that we print that so that people can see it.
Perfect. Let's see. So actually, Richard Nippon also asked another question. He said he was primarily interested in it, including community theater in the concept of recreation. Is that what others envision?
I think, well, Richard, thank you. I think that's the exciting opportunity we have here, is that with having not just the representatives on the DAC bring ideas of their own and working together as a team, but having the sub areas represented, all those kinds of ideas, the more the merrier. And I think that really broadens our diversity and opportunities in creating ideas. So that is something that could easily be brought to the table at a local sub area meeting when this group is actually, or the structure is actually formed. So that would be an idea that the DAC could take up, but we need to get it formed first.
And I'd like to add on a little, because I also serve on the task force for the Concord property and library planning task force. And the current approved plan includes keeping the small gym with the theater stage in the original Concord building what are they? You build it and they will come. So that's a few years downstream, but that is a venue that will be in the NCPRD repertoire. So stay tuned.
Excellent. I have our next question. It's from Lisa Beatty. Applications were taken last fall. Are you saying those applications are not going to get interviews? I understand they were told otherwise.
Actually, that's why they were invited, and I think I alluded to that earlier, and I'll just make it perfectly clear. All the applicants that replied before are not only invited, but encouraged to continue to participate, and they will be interviewed.
Excellent. Thank you. I have another question from Cindy. Is there any specific effort to recruit a diverse cultural representation for the task force and future subcommittees?
Thank you for that question. That is something that we discussed earlier this year in 2019 and early 2020. And I was really pleased that the members of the district advisory board that were working on the bylaws grabbed onto that and embraced it. So we actually kind of wrote that in as best we could. So embedded in the bylaws is language that that we try to get as much diversity, communities of color, people of all different backgrounds on the committee. I think that just broadens and enriches our work and our ideas. So yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. We have Ben Johnson in the attendees list. Ben, I've brought you over. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Great, thanks, Christina. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm going to try to be articulate in my question here. It is 7:40 at night, so it's been a long week. So I've been kind of fading in and out. I'm trying to understand exactly what's going on here, obviously, because I was part of the DAC and a lot of the decision making to get up to this point. You know, I see a lot of new faces here and faces that I'm familiar with. So my question is the purpose here, they're twofold. One, to recruit two people from each sub area, which is kind of what we landed at with the DAC for representation. But then also, am I hearing that are you all trying to create a singular body to interview and approve people from these sub areas within this coalition here that I see, and maybe broader? So, is that correct? Can you kind of explain that a little bit more? Because I'm a little confused.
Sure, Ben. This task force is not going to be recruiting anyone for the DAC. What the task force will be doing solely and specifically is creating the structure for the sub-area coalition, which ultimately will be doing the selection, but that has to go through a legal review for structure and it be approved by the board of directors. So what we're doing tonight is just, number one, bringing people up to speed, telling them what we're doing. We're giving people opportunity if they want to be part of the creation and the formation of the coalition or the structure that actually does the appointing. We are not, this group, this task force will not be appointing anyone to the DAC. That will be done again by the structure that is formed as a result of the task force work.
Great. If I'm still heard, thanks for clarifying that. And I appreciate all the effort going into, create some energy and getting people involved in the unincorporated areas. I think through those last couple months, I would say maybe half a year, 3/4 of a year involved in the, the bylaws, it's really understood that there's been a lack of representation and there's a lot of park inequities. So, we're all on board to make our entire district as good as it can. So I appreciate all y'all's effort in, supporting the unincorporated areas, and I hope that, the end goal of this is going to be great for everybody. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and Ben, thank you so much for all the hours you put in on the DAB and all the good ideas you brought forward, and also your question tonight. So thanks again.
Thank you.
And while Ben's speaking, I'd like to follow up with that just to say thank you, Ben. And what I know thing that when we were on the district advisory board together, it was very clear that the board and now the in future committee, advisory committee, is focused on the entire district. And what the idea of having the sub areas and the Milwaukee area, et cetera, is to have eyes that come from the various parts, but we will, whoever that group will be, will continue the process that we did on the DAB to focus on the entire district and what are the needs, wants of the entire district. So thank you for your partnership in that, Ben, in the past, and look forward to the future.
All right, thank you, Ben. I do have anonymous attendee has asked a question. Thoughts on outreach for youth member on the board?
That I believe that was included in our desires to recruit people, that we have youth represented. We want to make sure we get all different age groups in there. I think it's very important. So no one will be excluded from that. I believe I don't have the bylaws with me, and So we'll make a note of that and figure out if what the age, if there is an age mentioning somewhere in the bylaws or not. I don't have that with me, but I know we wanted to get people of different age groups as a goal.
I think it's 18 and over to
Okay,
be
thank you.
on the DAC, but I don't know if they're, if the governing board is going to add an additional actual youth, a place for an advisory youth person to be on there, but I think it's 18.
Thank you, Molly.
Thank you so much. We'll move over to the attendees list. It looks like Jay has a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Jay, and ask your question.
Yeah, besides the restructuring of NCPRD and kind of streamlining, what are the main goals of NCPRD?
Well, that's a great question. The original master plan set out what the goals were for the district, and then when Happy Valley joined the district, they start working on a new master plan that incorporated the city of Happy Valley. So they started doing the work, and then as Happy Valley withdrew, the completion of that master plan was never realized. And therefore, the district is sitting on really a very old master plan that needs to be updated. So I think what we will be doing is engaging in a master planning process, which is overdue, and to I guess assess what we have as a district, talk about our vision, and that's exactly I really think some of the first. There'll be a lot of exciting work to take place. But that's going to be part of the DAC's role, is to determine or change or adjust what they think the mission of the district is. It is the people's district, and we're trying to get that kind of a citizen representation to do that. But basically, to provide parks, recreation, and programs to serve the residents of the district.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jay. Let's see, we do have a question from Kristen Walker. Do you have a timeline in mind for when the task force will be formed, have a structure created, and then move forward to interview DAC applicants?
That is kind of vague. We're hoping that if the task force can get their work done, in a reasonable amount of time, it shouldn't take too long. Then it's just a matter of, again, forwarding that to the proper channels for approvals, and then as soon as that is approved by the NCPRD board of directors, which happens to be the county commissioners sitting as the board. Then they can kick off the application and application interview process, and hopefully we'll have the DAC convened and formed as soon as possible. But we have no specific timelines. We want to get it done as soon as possible, but we want, again, not to impede the process by trying to rush anything, and make sure it is as genuine and rich as possible.
Excellent. We have another question from Al Scott. What is the expected time commitment required to be on the task force? How often to meet? How long is the committee supposed to last before being dissolved?
Grover, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so thanks for the question, Al. So if I heard correctly, you're asking about the District Advisory Committee, and that's in perpetuity. No?
Task
Task force.
Task force.
Oh, well, task force is as soon as it gets its job done. So I misunderstood you. The task force is designed to work on the structure so that it can be approved, and then that structure will allow the sub areas to carry out their duties as per the bylaws to nominate and select their candidates, which then would be appointed by the Board of County Commissioners. So we have no, first of all, we have to have that task force up and running. And then second of all, how long it will take to come up with a structure that will be acceptable.
Good. I think he might be also asking how often you've been meeting weekly, you might be meeting twice a month, how that give an idea of maybe, I know you don't have it planned.
Well, there is no structure at this point for that. This group of volunteers, other than Commissioner Savas, have been interested in seeing what we could do to move forward and get the word out and spread the word and reach out across the 4 sub areas, et cetera. But that's not in of itself a task force. That it still has to be formed, and then it gets, there's nobody to tell you, well, we're going to meet this time. It will be up to that group, and I would suspect the more often they meet, the sooner they'll be done. The less often they meet, the longer it'll take.
Yeah, as you probably saw in the chat earlier and in the slides, people who want to be part of that task force, that temporary work to build the structure, get your name submitted by January 4th. That work will start then. They could probably be meeting once a week if they choose, or twice a week, and maybe 3-4 meetings they'll have their work done. I don't think there's a lot to this, but there again, that's for the task force to decide, not myself.
Excellent. We have another question from Joel Bergman. Hi all, sorry if this is redundant, but to clarify, will the task force to be formed represent all unincorporated sub areas, or will each sub area have its own task force? Thanks in advance.
I can take this one. So it's not redundant at all, Joel. Thank you for asking it. I think there's a lot of different groups, committees, boards that we're talking about. I think it's super important to ask these detailed questions. So I'm sure you are not the only person with that question. So there will be one task force that will be formed to represent, not to represent, but to structure the process. And they will represent all of the unincorporated sub areas. So there will just be one. Each sub area will not have its own task force. However, each sub area will meet together in their nominating committee. And so the nominating committee meeting is separate from the task force being one group to clarify and structure the process with which the applicants get, we look at the applicants and they move on to the appointment, and the nominating committee meeting as individual subgroup nominating committees. If I haven't answered your question, feel free to ask a follow-up in the chat. Thank you.
And that is the last question that we have open, and I do not see any hands up. So again, if you would like to ask a question live, you can just raise your hand. There's a raise hand feature on Zoom. And actually Grover has his hand up. Go ahead.
The last slide that we had actually gave an opportunity for people, which says Q&A, and at the bottom it gives an opportunity for people if they'd like to get on a mailing list to be advised of upcoming activities. It's not required to be on that. It does not mean you will or won't be on a task force, or you will or won't be a representative, but it is a chance to grow the community. So if you could put up the Q&A slide just for a minute.
Yeah, just one second. Let me grab that back up. Yeah.
And it'll give you, there's a URL that you can copy to go to. And if you by chance happen to see the article in the current, actually as of today, it will be last week's Clackamas Review. There's an article that also has the same URL in it. There you go. So it's tinyurl.com/NCPRD-DAC.
And I can put that in the chat as well.
Please, that'd be great. And while I am speaking there, I just really want to let people know our main focus is to keep people informed and keep broadening our reach. I know that in my own area, there are a number of people who are somewhat, based on past experiences, et cetera, disgruntled and why bother? And we are spreading the word that in fact, this is an opportunity to get people involved and your voices will be heard. We can't mandate, but the main thing we have in mind is that there will be a two-way communication between sub-area participants, that people that live in a sub-area, and their representatives on some sort of regular basis so that information can be gathered from the sub-area that can be taken with those folks when they go into the DAC meetings and vice versa. So the structure of that is not yet designed, but the importance of that in my conversations with multiple people is very important. And we hope to have that worked out.
We do have a new question. It's from Mike. Could someone before the end of this meeting please provide, again, next steps and timing?
Well, the next step that I know of is that until we get a structure, we can only be continuing the outreach to get more people paying attention and knowing things are coming. But until there is a structure, we won't be able to go to the next step, which would be to begin having joint meetings is one of the most discussed options, but it's not fixed. We'd have joint meetings where all 4 sub areas can participate and share information as far as what's going on. And then in a different format breakout, if you will, can meet with their own sub area and in that begin to formulate, et cetera, which will ultimately lead to them having their nominating committee and ultimately selecting their candidates to be appointed by the BCC as the governing board. But until that structure's in place, it's only outreach.
Yeah, if I could add to that, just so that everyone does know, is that when the task force recommendation is forwarded, reviewed by legal counsel, and approved by the board of directors of NCPRD, at that point, then you will hear from us again. We will be putting out a notice just as broad as this one, inviting people to and get engaged, be involved, and so there will be an announcement and possibly a similar type town hall as well. So and we'll be at that point in time looking back and say, here's the structure we've come up with, and that's when we really the rubber meets the road and we're making some progress, and anyone at that point can be involved, and that's when the application nomination interview process, that's where it'll take place at that point in time. So you won't be missing out on anything. If you want to be involved again on the task force, please email Katie Wilson. It's in the chat, kwilson2@clackamas.us. Again, the task force may not be your cup of tea. That's okay. We're really hoping that the big involvement and engagement and interest is really in the new structure in this coalition of sub areas, which will be really your opportunity to participate in the creation of parks and ideas, so that the people sitting on the district advisory committee are reporting back and forth to your sub areas, your areas, yourself, and carrying the message and being true representatives for your community.
Want to do Al's?
Thank you. And then he just writes after that, thanks, just trying to get another call to action. Well done, everyone. And then we have Al Scott. Will the task force meet in person, Zoom? How many actual members on the task force?
I can take that one as well, unless someone else was chomping. So the task force will almost certainly meet through Zoom. Unlikely that the task force will meet in person at this time. And there's no rule or law governing how many members there need to be on the task force. So it's really interest based. It's how many people email Katie and say, yeah, throw me in there. I want to lend some hours or more than a few hours to this project, and I'm able and available to see it through. So yeah, anybody, and again, that deadline is January 4th. So as far as the next steps, there is a firm deadline of January 4th for task force volunteers to put their name forward. That is hard to say, task force volunteers. So yes, January 4th, email Katie, let's do this thing and get the park groove going.
Yeah. And if I could just add one thing, we're really hoping that we have enough representatives or people interested to participate on the task force from each of the 4 sub areas. We wouldn't want to have a sub area with no one there being part of the task force. We want to make sure we have engagement. And it looks like by the poll we have that there's at least people here tonight that are interested. And I do know we have some interested folks that have reached out to some of us wanting to be part of some part of this whole thing. So by all means, if you're interested, we definitely encourage everyone to apply. We're trying to get, again, as broad of a reach across the district as possible.
All right, looks like we have a hand up. Jay, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Is everyone that's on my screen going to be part of the task force?
No, I will not be part of the task force.
Probably about,
Christina will not be part of the task force.
right.
Emily will not be part of the task force. This will be citizen driven. So I'm not sure who will.
There's probably a core of a few people already. There's room for others.
Thank you.
Any more questions at this point, Christina?
I don't see any open questions and no hands have been raised so far.
So we're not quite done, but we're almost done. So if you have a burning question, this would be a great time to get it in. But again, you know who these people are. You're welcome to contact them. Is there an email that anybody wants to extend in case people want to have Grover, you want to put your email out there? You're on mute. You're on mute.
We have the URL that's available to get on a two-way communication with that, and or you can contact through Katie Wilson.
Got it. Okie doke. So at this point, I just want to say personally that all of those hopes and dreams that you have for parks, it takes a huge amount of effort from every corner of our community, from our elected officials. Paul, thank you so much for all you contribute to this process, to the volunteers who have brought us to this point, to the people who have been on the district advisory board up to this point, Christina, Emily, and all the people who are not here tonight and couldn't be. I really encourage you to think about what's possible for the parks in our community, the recreation hopes and dreams that you have in the community, and reach out to those people, especially diverse people, young people, folks that you know have energy and willingness to do as well as to be concerned. So this is an opportunity to generate that enthusiasm, because it will all be available after we get the task force going. There'll be community meetings and there will be moving forward. So whether you choose to be an applicant to anything, you are going to be called on to be a supporter in this process. We have greater hopes than we have resources. So it's going to take a lot of us to generate all that's possible. So that's all I wanted to say, because, oh, and you have Thelma.
I have a question from Thelma Hagenmiller. It says, is NCPRD going to establish an interested person's email list?
Absolutely.
All right. Short and sweet answer.
Well, there's no one else but Commissioner Savas can speak for NCPRD.
Right. So folks, is this the point that when we're going to wrap it up? thank you, everybody, for coming. The next time we see each other, there'll be a lot more of us. And in the meantime, please get your names in if you want to roll up your sleeves. And thank you, all of you. And good night.
Thank you and happy holidays.
Oh, yes, that's right. Oh, the holidays.
Bye-bye.
Bye and thank you.